The first big step of our journey was finally here, the day we'd been planning and dreaming about for months. We had our destination picked out, a place full of nostalgia and a sense of home. Palouse Falls, Washington's largest waterfall. It's a spot close to Spokane where my mom and her best friend Karina met to send us off. This designated state waterfall is beautiful. It moves about 15 million gallons of water per minute over the edge of a vast 200-foot tall basalt canyon. We packed up snacks and started to make our way to the river that feeds the falls, with plans for a picnic, just like the ones we had in my childhood and even on Dylan and I's past dates. But this time was a proper goodbye to my mom. As we begin our hike, we realize the whole trail has been blocked off. We can't hike to the river or the other side of the canyon, missing out on the castle-like rock formations at the very top of the waterfall. There had been too many accidents recently, drownings and falls, so park rangers had decided not to take any more risks. While this was very disappointing, we were grateful just to be there, starting our adventure with familiar faces and scenery. With some final hugs, we made sure to leave in time to reach Ephrata by sunset. It was an emotional yet exciting goodbye to my mom and Karina, this time for a long time, not knowing how long our trip will really be. After a flat drive to Ephrata, we arrived at my dad's house and were greeted with open arms and a homemade dinner. The next day, we got right to work with revisions to the truck, but not before visiting with my furry siblings, Brutus, Bailey, and Babette. One of the first things my dad helped us with was installing a battery isolator to manage our power setup. Followed by securing the extra battery we had for the truck bed. To make things more comfortable, we bombed the truck with an air freshener, clearing out the old cigarette smell that had seeped into the fabric. It even got a rare full wash, courtesy of the Billy Power Wash Special. This was probably the one and only time the outside of the truck looked this clean on our trip. After saying goodbye again, we hit the road towards our next stop, Mount Rainier. While driving through the Columbia Basin, the wind nearly stole the show. It broke one of the front camper latches off and caused the pop-up to fly open on the highway. Thankfully, someone flagged us down and we were able to temporarily MacGyver a fix. There were plenty more little mishaps like this ahead, but we were ready. With no reservations, we drove on until the peak came into view.
This is how it's like all the time.
I know, right? We're never
We're
mad at each other.
always like this.
And all these weird little things. buy a big turkey tail mushroom.
For us, reaching Mount Rainier marked the true beginning of this journey. It offered a peaceful space where we could take a moment to realize this was really happening. Our original travel plans included making our way to the West Coast, starting with Seattle and the westernmost peak near Lake Ozette. Then, we would cruise down the Oregon coast to San Diego. We would have driven back up through Wyoming, brushed past Nevada, and avoided the crowds wherever we could. There were family stops too, like Dylan's in Utah and friends we wanted to visit along the way. Visiting as many national parks as we could quickly became our goal, which set our route as far as South Dakota and even plans for Louisiana, eventually crash landing at his mom's house near Houston, Texas. But all of our planning stopped at Texas. After years of intense planning and saving, we came to an agreement. Instead of clinging to the map, we'd let this trip shape itself day by day. For a planner like me, it was truthfully uncomfortable, but also liberating. It was a chance to practice letting go. And with nature surrounding us, it became easy to find beauty and purpose in whatever was right in front of us. After hiding in the fog, the mountain finally pulled back her veil on the day we packed up to move on to Seattle, a bright, beautiful symbol of our emotions at the time. We wanted to make it up to Paradise, where the ranger station marks the entrance to the national park, but it was still snowy. I had pictured the mountain in the springtime, bursting with wildflowers. We hadn't really packed for snow. We missed out on a map, too, since we hadn't set out to collect all the park maps just yet. But there will be more chances in the future. We know we want to come back to Washington at the end of this journey. At least that's the plan. The whole point of this trip is to experience the rest of the U.S. and be sure Washington is really where we want to settle down. Assuming it is, we wanted to see it all and find our favorite area, since Washington has such different landscapes depending on where you are. After our time at Mount Rainier, we backtracked to Leavenworth so I could satisfy a craving I had for Walkabout Mongolian Grill. This Bavarian-style village Dylan and I had visited in the past is more impressive in the wintertime. The lack of snow makes the whole town feel just a little fake. With some extra time to kill before our friend's wedding in Seattle, we decided to check out their new Alpine coaster. Now this was a new exciting element to Leavenworth. It was totally worth it to ride together. Our trip was done on a major budget, so we dedicated only a small portion of funds to what we called rent. Essentially any paid overnight spot like campsites or RV parks. So what did we do if we couldn't afford campsites every night? You might think, Walmart parking lots? But thankfully that was never necessary. While researching for the trip, we came across tons of apps dedicated to wild camping or boondocking. The one that worked best for us is called iOverlander. It lets you see a map and filter by what you need. Water, propane, restrooms, parking spots, and so much more. It's a community-based app, so users can create locations on the map. Each spot often has photos and reviews from previous campers. This app was a lifesaver, especially when plans fell through and we just needed a safe place nearby to park for the night. Almost all the spots we found were free and unregulated. Some were just one-night stops, but we even found a few gems where we could stay for several days. Our Our setup routine got easier with practice, though it was definitely a learning process at first. Each night we had a list of tasks to make sure everything was ready. Before we could pop up the camper, it needed to be level. So we'd lower the camper legs and take some weight off the truck suspension. After plenty of trial and error, we found our rhythm. We each had our specific jobs, making the setup and takedown smoother and quicker. We eventually added small comforts to our setup, like a rug and a step stool. We meandered to Mount Vernon, aiming for the Puget Sound Islands. By this point, our laundry bag was overflowing, and we no longer had easy access to a washing machine. This was the first time I'd use a laundromat for my personal clothes, which makes me realize how privileged I was just to have these basic necessities. iOverlander became my go-to for finding laundromats. They provided helpful details I wouldn't find elsewhere, like pricing and whether they had outlets or Wi-Fi. We were always on the lookout for a chance to plug in our portable battery. To get onto Whidbey Island from the north, you must go through Deception Pass. Known for its strong currents and shifting tides, Deception Pass features 2 bridges that rise about 180 feet above the water. It's also home to a beautiful state park with camping. Assuming you make reservations, which we hadn't. Our spontaneity often left us searching for alternatives, but thankfully iOverlander led us to a spot right on Penn Cove. This location was amazing. Although we were parked on the roadside and had cars rocking our camper as they drove by, the view was breathtaking. Just a few feet from the water, the sand bed was full of clams, with air bubbles revealing their hiding spots. Herons, geese, and ducks visited at different times. We arrived just before sunset, and the colors were stunning. When the moon rose, the whole scene transformed. The sun's movements were so vivid here on the water that we decided to wake up early to watch the sunrise. It was a truly memorable moment between us, being there to just witness the Earth's daily changes.